Manny Pacquiao versus Keith one-time Thurman. Now, first and foremost, I think this is a great fight that's really kind of flying under the radar of everyone, which, not so long ago you would never have heard flying under the radar and Manny Pacquiao in the same sentence. I'm not really sure why I'm not excited about this fight, but I don't feel any excitement. I love watching Pacquiao fight. I've been a huge Pacquiao supporter ever since the very early days. I'm sure, like yourselves, we've all seen the Pereira and the Morales, all the Marquez fights. I think that maybe the pinnacle of his, not the pinnacle, but his absolute athletic peak was when he knocked out and completely dismantled David Diaz. Then obviously went on to, I think it was De La Hoya. After that he fought. Of course, the Cotto destruction. Anyway, Pacquiao's legacy is absolutely unquestionable. And I love watching him fight. But for some reason, I can't get up for this fight, and I don't know why. I think Keith Thurman is also a fantastic fighter. I have a feeling there will be more buzz and more excitement about the fight if Thurman hadn't looked so poor against Josecito Lopez. However, you're only as good as your last fight, or so the saying goes. But I think, and I've only ever bet against Manny Pacquiao once, and I think in my heart I would like Pacquiao to win, because to do what he does at 40 years old is, people will liken it to Hopkins winning a world title at, I think, 45. But Hopkins fought at a much higher and a much slower rate. Pacquiao is still pumping out his punches, still got this incredible footwork. He's just an absolute marvel, an absolute spectacle of a human being. And I said, I've only bet against him once, and that was against Mayweather, and that went pretty much exactly. I think any hardcore boxing fans knew pretty much exactly how that fight was going to pan out. But to see Pacquiao dismantled in such a way, I think even knowing what was going to happen or thinking we knew what would happen, it was still surprising to see. I don't think we'd really seen him being dismantled like that since maybe the first Morales fight and maybe some of the Marquez fights. But having said all that, to say this, I can see Keith Thurman boxing a very negative, very clinch-heavy fight to a decision here. I want to be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I would like to see Pacquiao knocking Thurman out. It's not an impossibility. It's been a while since Pacquiao had a true knockout. I know he got Matisse, but I can just see Thurman boxing in very similar fashion to the way he did against Danny Garcia. And he is an excellent boxer, by the way, Keith Thurman, when he wants to be. He boxes beautifully off the back foot. And he moves very, very well. Very fluid. He might struggle later on with his stamina, which is ironic considering he's fighting a 40-year-old. But I think if one of these two is likely to tire down the home stretch, it would be Keith Thurman. And I think Pacquiao, probably coming from behind, might finish strong, win maybe the last third of the rounds if it goes to a points decision. And I think the general consensus might be Pacquiao might have edged it, but I think overall rounds, I imagine Keith Thurman will probably be ahead. Now, I could be wrong. Like I said, if you look at the Josecito Lopez, I think that can be attributed almost entirely to one time trying to make a statement on his return, and he got into all sorts of trouble. He couldn't really have picked a more durable opponent than Lopez, and he's been around the block, Josecito. I think it was way back with Victor Ortiz. I think he kind of made a name for himself. So the fight where they kind of both shared knockdowns, and I'll tell you what, Ortiz is a storied history and a storied character as well, with his Maidana fights and his Berto fights. Anyway, that's a separate issue. I know people don't like Ortiz, but I think he was awesome to watch. I loved his fights. He was like a bigger punching Amir Khan. Anyway, complete side road there. If again, gun to my head, I think Thurman takes this on a maybe split decision, probably a little bit wider in reality than what the scorecards read it as. I think he'll be quite negative. He's going to be pumping the jab, stepping around, making Pacquiao a little bit frustrated. When Pacquiao does get inside, he'll tie him up. And of course, it depends on the ref. The ref might be a little bit stringent, might deduct a point or two from Thurman, which would make it probably a Pacquiao fight. But if it plays out the way I think it will be, I think Pacquiao is going to be chasing Thurman for the entire fight. Unless Thurman decides to come out trying to make a statement. Tries to make a statement. He's been doing interviews this week saying he's going to knock Pacquiao out, and I think he said before 6. I think it's fine saying that, but I think he'll come out defense first. If he doesn't, I think it could be an absolute classic fight, like a real classic. Because Thurman, when he's hurt, he likes to fight, right? He's definitely a fighter in him. And for one reason or another, I think people have grown to dislike Thurman. And if you ask them why, they probably couldn't tell you why. He seems like a good dude in an interview. He's just something, I don't know, something that just doesn't quite gel. And I also think Pacquiao's lost a little bit of his kind of holier than thou kind of status that he had for a long time. Maybe with the departure with Roach and then obviously the reintroduction and whatever. But I don't know. I think Manny Pacquiao's lost a bit of his kind of overall appeal, a bit of his luster. Not necessarily. Maybe since the Mayweather fight. Again, people never like to see their heroes or their superheroes turn out to be just human beings after all. Maybe something to do with that, but a combination of all these reasons, I think this fight just isn't as big as it should be. It certainly doesn't warrant the skill that both fighters still carry. I am interested to see what happens, and I will be watching it. And now I'm hearing myself talking about it. I am getting more excited because it's two elite fighters, and I still think Pacquiao is elite. And I've been reading columns on Pacquiao for a long time that he's on this crazy decline, and he's a shadow of himself, and he's undoubtedly on the decline. But I still think the Broner fight, I start every year with a very small amount in a betting account. And I put my entire account on Pacquiao to beat Broner. I was absolutely convinced that Broner just wouldn't have the punch count, wouldn't have the work rate to be able to match Pacquiao. And I was really surprised that people were calling that a 50-50. So again, I'm a huge believer in Pacquiao. He's done remarkable things. I just think if Thurman fights the way he did against Garcia, or with the same skill level, doesn't get involved in a tear-up, I think he might make it a bit of a snooze fest, and Pacquiao will be doing his best to try and create a fight. Might get a bit reckless later on, and Thurman catches him with a Marquez kind of straight... Was it straight right that Marquez knocked him out with? I want to say straight left. Because I'm thinking Pacquiao was coming in, and I'm sure it was a left. Must have been a right, though, if it was Marquez, right? Anyway, I could see Thurman, knocking Pacquiao out if Pacquiao gets too reckless. But considering Thurman's recent form of knockouts and Pacquiao's legendary chin, really, I would be very surprised. I hope you tune in for the fight. Give it a read, give it a listen, and let me know your thoughts. Thanks, folks.